Jane for arranging this and also inviting me to speak on this topic. And I'm also very proud of Elbek because you have selected this topic for your webinar. And this is really a great choice, not just because I'm very passionate about empowering and supporting women in leadership, but also because this shows how inclusive you are as leaders and how your effort to really build an association where everyone has a voice are evident. So thank you very much for the invitation, Elbek, and I hope in today's session we spend some time not just like talking about the topic, but also reflecting on our own experiences as leaders. Because I believe we can relate to this topic, whether we are males or females. It has different aspects, not just related to women and gender issues, but also of the idea of building an inclusive leadership atmosphere within our teacher associations. So I'm going to share my slides. And at any point, if you feel that you can't hear me well or anything is going wrong, I can switch off my video. Maybe it will help with the connection. So just let me know. I'm now sharing my slides. I hope you can see them.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the title I've selected for the session today is Women in Leadership, All Hands on Deck. And I'm glad to see among our attendees males, not just females, because as I have mentioned earlier, this topic is really important for all of us as leaders, not just for women within our teacher associations. Um, it's very interesting when we come to talk about issues related to women and female leadership that some people think that we are after giving women more power, that we want women to have more power and this power to be most of the time associated with her status over men. And I remember when we started talking about this topic at Africa ILTA years back, we had also some comments from members asking us, why do you really care only about women empowerment and women initiatives? Um, Women are already really in power and women are taking their own position in leadership. And some people think when we come to talk about female initiatives and women initiatives, that we talk about the photo that you see, that we are fighting over power and we want the women to be actually the winners here and to have the chair at the end. But this view of women empowerment has been there, actually, I have to say, in the past for a certain period of time, where some initiatives that claimed the support for women try to give women this definition that you needed to be on the top always, that you needed to be the most powerful, that we needed sometimes to take the power from others and give it to women who are not really visible enough. This idea that we always have to think about women empowerment in terms of giving power to women over men, you know, this dichotomy of us versus them has defined women initiatives for a certain amount of time. But these concepts of women empowerment are flawed, and they started to change recently because the idea is not just to present women with power or to give power to women, but also to fix what is wrong around women, to that actually is disabling them from becoming leaders. So we are not just looking at the women and men. No, we are looking at the system in which both men and women are working and trying to see what's wrong in this system that is disabling women, one group, not to really reach their own potential. So the Women Empowerment Initiative started to shift a little bit the concept and to have this idea that we are not really after giving power to women over men, but we are after fixing a system, building and establishing an atmosphere where we have to change to be able to enable everyone to thrive and to survive as well. The other flow with the idea of women empowerment initiatives, not just in our context in Africa, I have to say, we are talking here about this issue as a universal topic because you would find a lot of research talking about how women are not really empowered or not really taking their place in leadership in different countries outside of Africa as well. And maybe after this session, I can share with you some resources about this if you are interested in reading about this. But it's not just peculiar to our context in Africa. The idea that we always blame the woman for not really taking steps in her career. And I have heard this before, actually, also in one of my meetings with our affiliate leaders before at Africa ILTA. I asked why don't we have women, a lot of women around in the meeting, and one of the leaders said that women are busy at home and that they have other responsibilities. So they don't have time to dedicate to professional development, or they don't have time to attend these meetings from home because usually are babysitting or taking care of the kids. And the excuses are always centered around the woman herself, that whatever women are not able to do, we tend to think sometimes, and this is subconscious, I have to say, according to psychology, because gender bias concepts are mostly subconscious. We tend to think that uh, all the reason is because women don't want to do this. They don't have the time, they have other commitments. So there are some studies that talk about, for example, girls and boys in the classroom. And you would be astonished to really read these studies to see how girls in the class think about their own situation. And that some girls in one study said that they don't speak up because they are girls and they are expected to behave in a certain way versus men or boys who are expected to also have a loud voice and express themselves in class. So it's always about also the expectations we have of girls in our classes, women in our associations, that sometimes make them act in a certain way, make them behave in a certain way. So the blame here, according to these all the ideas of women empowerment, was always on the woman herself. She's not advancing enough in her career, also because she's not taking these steps. She's not really showing up, you know. And because this is a fluid concept of women empowerment, as I have mentioned earlier, the concept has started to shift towards building more just and fair atmosphere for everyone to be empowered. So this, just talking a little bit about literature and research here in the topic, this started actually the idea of women taking initiatives, women empowering themselves, you know, new liberal rhetoric that started actually in the West with the movements of women empowerment in the 60s and 70s. We see this a lot. And as a result of that, women started to think of themselves that we want to gain more power, we want to be more powerful than men. But this is not actually how we want women to behave to actually get the right place in society. That's why the modern theories of women empowerment are different. And I'm here adopting this definition in our discussion tonight about women empowerment. That is actually an initiative or a concept that makes a group achieve whatever they are capable of, where there is no conflict of interest. So the concept of empowerment in itself is about enabling or making one group actually able to achieve what they want. So if a woman wants to become, let's say, the president of a teacher association, are there resources to help her become that president? If a girl, for example, wants to speak up in class to express her thoughts Are we allowing this as teachers? Are we giving her the right tools? Are we teaching her how to express herself with confidence enough? Are we enabling our girls in the first place to go to school and express their thoughts? Or we have other stereotypical ideas about how we want our girls to behave? So just like looking back at how we think about gender in our community and what kind of expectations we have on women, on girls in our classes. And they keep referring to girls in our classes because maybe not all of us are leaders, but all of us are teachers. And we can relate to this as well in our classes. And I'm sure you can think about examples of girls in your classes who, for example, always stay silent or do not come to school as regularly as they should be. And the roots for this, according to some studies, especially in our context, are all related to gender issues. So the model of power we are talking about tonight is not a zero sum. That if we increase the power of women, this does not mean that we are after diminishing that of men. You see what I mean? So this fight, and I'm sure many of you are members of Africa ELTA, and you see these comments sometimes also in our WhatsApp group for members, that whenever we post something about our women initiative, that we have a mentoring program for women in Africa ELTA, and whenever we post any information about this program, you get comments from male members saying, why don't we have one for men? Why is always about women? But whatever initiative that we are doing, not just as Africa, ELTA, anyone, as
Amira, you're muted.
Mute, yeah.
Some sound issues.
I'm sorry, you can hear me now?
Okay, we can hear you now.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so I was saying that whenever we are talking about these women initiatives, we are not talking about this old definition of empowerment that used to really frighten men or like make them scared, okay? That we are trying to give power to women over them. No, we are talking about a justice movement where we are trying to enable a group that is not really enabled enough to have their own voice, their own position, to allow them to have the same access to resources like others. And the idea that, okay, now we are talking about women empowerment, women in leadership. Why are we talking about this topic while we have women who are already in power? And I heard this, and I'm sure many of you have heard this before, that people would say, why are we still talking about women empowerment initiatives while we see women who have become maybe presidents? We have women in our teacher association in Africa ELTA. We have women in your teacher association in ELBAC. We have women in associations everywhere. Why are we talking about empowering them, enabling them? They are already there. This is really a very important argument because when we say women still need to be empowered, no one should have the right to say they are already empowered. You know, like sometimes when you, I'm going to say this example because I think it's very true. When someone would say that you are, would call someone a racist. If I say someone is a racist, that person doesn't get to say, I'm not a racist. Why? Because whatever action that you have done yourself to someone else, you don't have the right to control how they define this action if it hurts them. So if we say women are empowered, they don't really need to be empowered. They are empowered. They are already leaders. And women say no. We still have to feel that we are empowered because there are things that we are still suffering from. You don't get to say no, you are empowered. You see what I mean? So it's the same argument when we have the idea that you want your or one of your students would feel that you are not fair as a teacher because you didn't grade them like fairly. And sometimes you don't have the right to say, no, I'm fair, unless you have an evidence to really counter argument, to do the counter argument. And here we sometimes, in most of these arguments, do not have the counter argument. That women, many women in our associations, in our community, still feel that they are not really empowered enough, that they are still not taking their position. And what we should do, especially as leaders, is to listen and try to provide this environment and atmosphere for them to speak up and maybe try to elevate some of the injustices that these women feel. This also applies, by the way, to some young leaders within our teacher associations, because I heard before from one young leader that they don't feel empowered enough. And when I come to talk to them about why, you feel that their voices are not heard, that the other experienced and older leaders are not giving them the room to really share their thoughts. So the same idea, whenever you have an invisible group within your teacher association, whether those are women, young leaders, inexperienced volunteers, those are sometimes not visible enough in our associations. What we need to do as leaders is try to listen and try to do our best to create an atmosphere where they can actually grow and develop and thrive as well. So, going back again to the argument of numbers, and when you say we have, for example, in our teacher association, we have 5 out of 10 who are female leaders. This means in our association, we already have empowerment for female leaders. And I would say you have already done a great job by achieving this gender balance, but still you are not 100% at your best. Why? The idea is simply of equality. You know, when we talk about equality and equity, so you are providing access to leadership for women in your teacher association. You have this number of female leaders on your board, but when it comes to taking decisions, those women voices are not heard. When it comes to attending meetings, most of the female leaders do not attend the meetings because of other commitments at home. When it comes to expressing thoughts and participating actively in discussions, those women leaders do not really share their thoughts. Does this mean we have really achieved empowerment? Does this mean that we have already achieved like what we want for women in our association to do? No. So what I want to say here is it's not enough sometimes in our teacher associations that we count the numbers and we say we have 5 female leaders out of 10 on our board. This is excellent, by the way. I'm not saying this is bad, but I'm just saying this is 50% of the work. What needs to be done, the other 50%, is giving those invisible women, giving this like invisible group a voice. So if you think how many women and you have the 50-50% or even like 40-60, that's still great. But how many of them speak up? How many of them talk, express their thoughts, have an active role in building the association? And I'm not just saying this to male leaders, I'm saying this to all of us, male and female leaders. Do we have this environment within our teacher associations where everyone feels safe to speak up, where everyone's voice is heard? Like if you are a leader leading a meeting with your members of your board and you notice that some members are silent or they don't speak enough, you have to give them a nudge, ask for their opinion. You know, the same thing we do with our students in class. When we find a student who is silent, is not participating, what do? Do we leave them? No. we always, I'm sure all of us try to motivate them, encourage them to speak up. But what happens sometimes is that some leaders are happy just because of the numbers, but they don't go the extra mile and do the effort to try to build the atmosphere to encourage those other leaders who are silent, invisible, who don't speak up to express their thoughts. And there is a term for this in research, and it's usually quoted of students when we use techniques, ideas, strategies, or even topics in the classroom that do not really relate to our students. We force them to be silent because we are not giving them the enough support to use the language to speak up. The same happens within our teacher association context. When we have women on board, when we have young leaders on board, but they don't speak up because we are not supporting them enough, we are not motivating them enough, we are not giving them the room to express their thoughts, then we are participating in making them silent. And here, the numbers don't really matter. If I have 5 out of 10, 5 female leaders out of 10 in my association who are leaders, okay, what did they do? Are they active enough? Are they participating enough? No. Then the numbers don't really matter here. And some of the concepts, some of the reasons that really make those leaders silent, I would say some of them are internal and some are external. So if you have a woman on board and she doesn't express her thoughts, or even let's say she didn't make it to the board, she still aspiring for leadership, there are things that might prevent her from advancing in her career that are external from the community, society, from others around her. And also, there are things that are internal. And here we will look at both of them. Some cultures, especially in our African culture, are not used to seeing women in senior management roles and can therefore show less respect. I have to say that sometimes in male dominated societies, in societies where like seniority, like being an old uh, person, means that you will be a good leader. You see what I mean? And I have to say, in Egypt, we have sometimes these concepts that older people, of course, also due to culture, religion, etc., we have these associations with age, experience, okay, age and respect. And these are all good ideals. But when it comes to leadership, sometimes they are unfair because if you attach gender to leadership, then you would be unfair to those who don't go the same way. So if you attach, some cultures actually think of leaders as men. You never think of, even like sometimes when you Google, and I wouldn't say the country, but you would Google, maybe write on Google a leader in, and you say the country, the photo that would appear would be of a man, not a woman. Okay, like the same idea, like we used to also teach this when we used to show the contrast between female jobs and male jobs. So when you type, for example, a doctor, you'd always get most of the photos are male, right? Then lawyers, the same. This started to change recently with some gender, initiatives, but we still have these stereotypical ideas of leadership and gender. Also, some female leaders experience microaggressions from their followers only because of their gender. And this is according to research. And I'm going to talk about microaggressions in a minute. What do you mean by this? So even if you are a woman in power, and the association, the members, everyone is really happy to have a woman in power, you still are going to experience microaggressions that you as a female leader might face, and your male counterparts will not face. So they are only gender microaggressions. And we'll talk about this in a minute. Also, some leaders do not get the same access, especially female leaders do not get the same access to resources as their male counterparts. And some, like not just like leaders, but some women in general do not have the same access, for example, to training. And I've heard this sometimes from our female members within Africa Elta that uh, she would say, I can't really travel to the city. I'm living in a village. I can't travel to the city because this will take money. I will go for 10 hours by bus, and I will have actually to leave my family. You know, all of these ideas, when it comes to a man, it's easier because her husband, for example, can travel and leave the kids with her, and this would be considered as her role. You know, if the husband does it, and this is peculiar in our culture in Africa, if the husband does the babysitting, it's really an exception. You see, it's very common in the West. When it comes to our culture, it is an exception to find the husband doing the babysitting. You see, wow, you are doing this, you are cooking, you are babysitting. But these gender roles in our society as well hinder women. And you would find sometimes some women making these hard choices between advancing in their careers or taking care of the family. You are not going to sacrifice your family because of your career. And it's very hard, to be honest, to make the balance. So this relies, and you would say that this struggle is true for women more than men. Men, of course, suffer a lot because they have to put the bread on the table. But still, these gender dilemmas, gender struggles are very true for women more than men. And at the end of the day, they might affect her advancement to leadership and even in her professional life. And talk about all of this. Some people would say, no, I'm supporting women. I'm really not really biased towards men at all. But just to say the truth, gender bias is unconscious. So when we talk about these stereotypical ideas of gender, of leaders, of males versus females in power, usually we are faced with our subconsciousness, how we think about it in terms of how this is ingrained in our culture and our way of thinking. This is a research study I found that's very interesting. They asked people to describe men, okay, using positive adjectives and negative adjectives. Men in leadership, I have to say. And they also asked the same people to describe women in leadership using positive adjectives and negative adjectives, both, you know. And just like describing men, and people described or gave more positive adjectives, attributes to male leaders, and just like a few couple of negative adjectives. When it comes to women, you see it's the opposite. So the positive adjectives are less than the negative ones. This study was done to show also that it is ingrained in our brain, how we think about gender and how we think about gender in relation to leadership in particular. That these ideas might not be actually something that we would say that we believe in, but when faced with certain situations, our subconsciousness, the way that we have been taught about gender, about men versus women in our society, is always the key to make judgments in situations. Talk about microaggressions, another struggle that faces women. And here I really love this idea of microaggressions, talking about it, because when I usually talk about it, not only women relate, but also men, because also it's something that all of us might suffer from. So talking, for example, sometimes about male privilege, that women in leadership might suffer from the idea that they are in a culture where people think of leadership as men, you see? And because in our societies, again in Africa, we tend to have these ideas based on our culture, based on our religion, based on the way that we have been taught in schools. So, based on the gender roles that are also associated to how we function in society. So, the one struggle is the male privilege. So, for example, according to research, they asked people in the HR, in the human resources, if they are to hire one candidate in any job, okay, would they give the priority to a male or a female? And in this study, it was business related. They said many of the respondents said that they would give it to a male. You know what were the reasons? The fact that if it was a man, he will not really have the responsibilities of getting pregnant, having to take a vacation, having to take a leave for maternity leave, take some days off to take care of the kids. You see? So the gender roles that are associated with women usually sometimes deprive them from opportunities. And I have to also say here, I have faced this situation before when I was a leader in a teacher association here in Egypt. Uh, we had one of the board members who was a young female. She was very young, but she was also very ambitious and very active. And she served the association for more than 5 years, and she was qualified to run for president after serving for this number of years. When we had the committee to nominate those final candidates to go for the ballot, and we had this committee had to choose the people who will be voted on by the general membership. One member of the review committee objected to her inclusion and said that this candidate is not qualified only because he knew she had a son, a young son, who had some kind of illness that required her to really be like careful with him and take care of him most of the time. So he said this as a reason in the committee to disqualify her. Of course, this was a big issue within the association because you are trying to judge a candidate's ability based on her personal and maternal also responsibilities, and this was very unacceptable and not professional as well. But it shows how gender biased ideas are ingrained in our brain, that sometimes and this was a very well educated person. He had a PhD, he was very famous here in Egypt, a well trained person as well, but he spoke this way of a colleague only because of her responsibility as a mother. He thought that this would hinder her from assuming her responsibilities as a president. So this was a very shocking example of how sometimes women are judged in even the most professional settings based on their gender roles. Also, this is called microaggression because here she is not denied leadership. She is denied leadership not because of her gender, but because of her responsibilities being a woman. You see? Also, and something that is very common, the idea that sometimes also when, and I've heard this before, when there is an opportunity to provide funding for someone to travel to a conference within a teacher association, some of our female members sometimes told me in their local associations that the leaders would give the opportunity to males not females, because they think the man can travel, and they think also they can take care of themselves. They will be safe traveling alone, while the woman is not. And I have to say here also, this is a problem that sometimes we face, not just because of others doing this to us as women. I'm talking to our like female leaders here. Sometimes I see women denying themselves the opportunity because they are women. Like she would say, I'm not going to travel because I can't. This is something I can't do. I'm a woman. How can I travel alone? You see? So sometimes we deny the opportunities ourselves. Even if your president in your teacher association tells you you have this opportunity to go, some women still say no. And I have to say also, in our recent conference here in Egypt, at Africa ELTA, there were some funding opportunities provided in our leadership training that some of the LBAC leaders also participated in. And I had to push some female members to actually apply because I thought they are really qualified to get this opportunity. And some of them actually told me, I'm not going to apply. I can't travel. I don't know how I will do on my own. But after pushing them, they applied and they got it. And we were very happy that they got the chance to attend the international conference in Egypt by Africa ELTA. So sometimes we as women deny ourselves the opportunities because we think we are not qualified. Sometimes also you would serve in an association, and this is talking to men and women alike. Sometimes you would serve in an association for years as a volunteer. All of us do this as volunteers, but you don't see yourself as a chair of a committee. You don't see yourself as the president of the association. You think you are not worthy of the opportunity. There are people who are more experienced than you, while you yourself, with your expertise, you are qualified to go for it. So denying ourselves opportunities and not dreaming big of what we want to do sometimes can hinder our own path to leadership. And this is true of males and females, although it is more true of females because this is something I believe that women usually do to themselves, that you don't do justice to yourself. I don't deserve this. This is an opportunity that others can take, but not me. You see? This is again a microaggression. You see, it's subconscious. It is something we do without thinking, but it is again ingrained in how we think about ourselves. As you can see here, there are a lot of examples of microaggression, and one of them is also the idea that sometimes when you see queen bee syndrome, you see this one here. Uh, this one I really love because I see a lot of our female leaders. I think we need to mute everyone. Okay. We see a lot of leaders who are very active within teacher associations, but they are given the small tasks. You know what I mean? So, for example, in your teacher association, you have a lot of volunteers. All of them are not active, okay? Some are active 90%, some are active 80%, some are active 20%. You see? You would go to the volunteer who is active 90% and you give them more tasks because you trust them, they do the work, right? But when it comes to higher leadership positions, you don't think about them. You see what I mean? I know that many of the leaders here don't do this bad practice, but it happens. And I've heard this before from members that sometimes they are very active as volunteers, but when it comes to big leadership opportunities, the leaders do not think of nominating them for these big opportunities. And this is very demotivating. If you have leaders who are young, emergent leaders within your teacher associations who are very active, organizing webinars, talking to this speaker, to this presenter, taking care of the tech check within your events, this is really a huge task. And being committed in doing this work to show your teacher association in a very good shape, when it comes to bigger or opportunities of funding, of leadership positions, of training, some leaders do not think of those volunteers, active volunteers, as the material for these opportunities. And as a result, they are denied opportunities to leadership. They, of course, by time will be burned out. By time, they will feel demotivated. And most of the time, those are the young leaders within our associations and the women within our associations. I see sometimes women in teacher associations in our African context who are really active here and speaking here and talking to this person here about their association, trying to engage members, trying to get members to join the association. But then I would find someone else who is very silent. You never hear about the person. They become the president of the association. That was like my question, why didn't you run for president? And her answer was, I don't think I'm qualified. No, you are qualified. And here I'm going to talk about my experience when I was serving at Nile TESOL, the Association for English Teachers in Egypt. I served there for 8 years as an active volunteer, volunteering on different committees, communication committee, professional development committee. I chaired the conference for 2 years. And then one day, the president, who was like 50 years older than me, she came to me and she said, I want you to run for president next year. And I was young in my 20s, and I didn't think of myself to be the president. This is a very big association. The association in Egypt has more than, like 13,000 members. It's a very big one. And I never thought of myself in this role. I told her I don't think that I should run. I think there are older people who should run for president. You see my idea that you always think old people, more experienced people. But she said, no, you have the experience. And at that time, it was true because no one on board had the same experience I had with Nile TESOL, with the association. I served there for 8 years. I knew everything about the association. I was active in events, so members saw me. They saw that I was active. So when it came to voting, they voted for me because they saw me active in the association. They saw I was serving the association and I deserved to be voted for. So I was voted for because of my experience, because of my service that I didn't think would qualify me to be the president. And sometimes we do this to ourselves as women and as leaders, that we don't think we deserve opportunities. We don't think we should run for opportunities. We don't think we should show up for opportunities because there are others who are more experienced than us. There are others who are better than us. And this is not true. You are the experienced. You have presented, you have already served your association. You are the best person to lead. And most of the problems, I'm not here to talk about politics, but most of the problems in general in our countries, that sometimes we have leaders on the top who know nothing about those who are in the bottom because they have never been in service. You get to pick someone, put them on the position, and leave them for 10 years as a president of something, okay? And they would stay there forever. This, of course, is a model of leadership that we want to change because it's not serving us. The leaders should come from within the association. Being active as a volunteer should be the best qualification to make you the president, to make you the leader in your position. So don't deny yourself the opportunity. And you, as a leader, look for those who are very busy doing work within your teacher association. And those are the ones who need you to support them and to nominate them for opportunities and to give them more motivation to keep serving your association. This is what I have just talked about is self-silencing. That in a meeting sometimes, and this is usually happening in our female program. In the first meeting, and I will talk about the program in a minute, but in the first meeting with our mentees, they are usually silent because we have mentors who are working with mentees to help them with conference presentation skills. In the first meeting, all the mentees are silent because they get to reflect on this later, and they say in the reflections that they felt they had nothing to say, they felt shy, they felt they were not really in the position to speak up. But by time, when they get the mentoring, when they get the training, they speak up. They graduate from the program becoming professional conference presenters, very famous speakers from Africa to the world. Many of them not just to speak at our conferences, but also speak at other international events. So our conception of ourselves that we keep ourselves silent, we don't help ourselves to express our thoughts. If we do not help ourselves many of the times, we will not find someone to help us. You have to show your skills to others so they see something in you to make you a leader. And in my situation, I was serving for 8 years, being very active, organizing events, showing up to different conferences and events in my association in Egypt. And that's how other leaders saw me and saw that I had the experience, I had the competence to run for president. If you're silent, shy, don't speak, if people ask for thoughts, input, and you don't have anything to say, how come they are going to give you opportunities for leadership? No one will, right? You have to show up for the opportunities. And sometimes we don't have experience. Sometimes we have young leaders who don't have the experience. And it's okay if we see them like that, that we support them to still say their opinions. You know, sometimes you can attend meetings with young leaders and experienced leaders, and you would find experienced leaders dominating the discussion. This is not a healthy meeting because in a healthy meeting for you as a leader, everyone should speak. Sometimes those inexperienced younger leaders might say things you don't really like, you know, might say things that you don't believe are true. It's okay. Just giving them the confidence to speak up will help them gain experience. And by time, they will give you the right opinions. They will get motivated because they will feel they belong to your association. So these are all examples of microaggressions that are usually faced by invisible groups within our teacher associations. And since we are talking about women today, these are things also that are experienced by women in leadership that are also cited by them in the different examples we have in our teacher associations in Africa. And I'm very happy today to see a lot of initiatives taking place in different teacher associations, in your association as well in Kenya. This is excellent. I know a lot of female leaders from Kenya who are excellent leaders, very active here and there and doing a lot of work. And this is an evidence, sorry, that the leadership within the association is doing their part to empower and support invisible groups. And I keep saying invisible groups, not just women, because we have others who are invisible within teacher associations, like young leaders, like those who are not confident enough to speak and share their thoughts. We still need to encourage them to do the work. Going back to the argument of numbers, now we believe, I hope, that having numbers of women on board, having a number of young leaders on board is not enough. Having a seat at the table does not mean having a voice. We have to encourage those who are silent to speak up. If we find sometimes that a woman is speaking, and this is very famous in linguistics, a lot of studies are done about interruptions. How many times girls are interrupted in class? How many times women are interrupted in meetings, of course, by men, you see? So there are a lot of studies in linguistics about this topic. And of course, if you are a linguist, you have read these studies before. But it's very interesting to see that we have these interruptions in meetings. So if you are leading a meeting, or even if you are attending a meeting, and you find a woman speaking and a man interrupts, please ask them not to do so. If you are a woman speaking and a man interrupts you, please ask them to stop until you finish. If you have a girl in your classroom who's trying to express her thoughts, but then other boys are trying to interrupt, make noise, ask them to stop talking until she finishes her thoughts. These small actions and these practices help build how we think about gender in our society, how we think about not just women, but how we think about including everyone on the table, not just favoring some on the expense of others. And I have to say, many of this happens subconsciously. And that's why we have these discussions, because you bring the subconscious to the conscious. I used to do this in my class. Now I know this is not right. So next time it happens, I will not allow it to happen. I know this happened before in a meeting with one of my female colleagues that someone interrupted her. So when it happens again, I'm not going to allow this to happen. I know that I had some female leaders on my board who don't attend the meetings. Did I ask them why? Did I try to help them to attend or just accuse them of being absent? So just taking this approach. Sometimes, of course, we have sometimes some not uncommitted people, okay? But I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about the idea that this is the norm. This is not actually the norm. This is an exception. So she was absent. She usually attends the meetings, but then she was absent for this number of meetings. Why? And if it is something related to her responsibilities at home, try to help. You know, in our female program, one of the mentors, he is a male mentor. He told me once that his mentee used to schedule their meetings during the times where her husband was at home, maybe late at night, 11 midnight, very late, because this was the only time that she could do the meeting while her husband is taking care of the kids. She used to cancel meetings with her mentor, not because she was not committed, no, but because she had no one to sit with the kids while she was attending the meetings online with her mentor. So sometimes this lack of commitment that we translate as lack of commitment as leaders is not really lack of commitment. It is a problem due to the gender. And since our society is too big to change, there are a lot of things we can't control. You can't tell the husband, please, your wife is having a mentoring program, sit with the kids. You can't do this. What you can do from your part, and this is what our mentor did, is try to accommodate. So if she is available midnight, this is the time I'm going to meet with her to give her the mentoring session. If she can meet on WhatsApp, not Zoom, let's do this. You know what I mean? So trying to extend our efforts and support to people within our teacher associations who need it will help everyone. Everyone will feel they belong, and this feeling of belongingness will help them, motivate them to do their best for the association, and of course, advance in their careers. So the initiative of women empowerment, female leaders, females in leadership, this title is not, I believe all of us now know, it's not about the idea that women have more power over men. This concept is flawed, and this concept is not what we are adopting when we talk about women empowerment. When we talk about females in leadership, we talk about improving the quality of experiences of those women, of those girls who we have in class, rather than just caring about how many of them make it to the top. So the argument, don't talk about females in power because we have a lot of them in power, is counter is actually counter it has a counter argument. It's flawed because it's not just about the numbers, it's about what experience do these women have when they are in power. Are they respected? Are they given the voice? Are they allowed to enact what they believe should be the policy for the association? You would hear a lot from women in power about how sometimes they struggle through these microaggressions only because of their gender and only because in our cultural uh, uh, norms, this is not really the norm. So when it comes to our task as leaders, we have to observe what's happening in our association. And I believe we have shared a lot of examples. If you see something as a microaggression against a woman, against a group who is not really visible in your association, do something about it, speak up. And since we are leaders, we have a very important thing. We have power. We are the ones who are able to change. So do something to change it. Stop a meeting where someone's interrupted. Ask about females on the table if you are attending a meeting where everyone around is not really is males. Okay, I think I attended once a conference where we had a lot of males among the attendees, and they asked why, and the same idea that women cannot travel to come to this conference. It was in a country in Africa. So you see, if you are not doing something to go to different places within your country, so you allow women who come from different remote areas to attend, you are not doing enough. Do these online meetings if women can't travel to the center of the city to come to the conference, because we know in our African context traveling is dangerous, sometimes it's expensive within the country itself. Do online meetings, allow women to attend online from remote areas. If they don't have internet access enough to attend a Zoom meeting like this one, like what you're doing now, record it, send it to them later. Do it on WhatsApp. Allow a discussion on WhatsApp where they can see it whenever they have connection. Try to accommodate those who can't make it. And in doing this, you are really doing a lot as a leader to support those who need your help and support. If we are serving those around us who are always present, this is not enough, right? As leaders, we have to look for those who are absent, who are not showing up, who are not really speaking up, and try to support them to do it. This program we started at Africa ELTA. I'm proud that this year is our 5th year. And in this program, we started not just because we wanted to support women, etc. No, because we found in our conferences every year we have a rule that we have to have gender balance in speakers, especially plenary speakers, that we should have one male and one female. We struggled a lot to identify a female speaker to come to our conference as a plenary. This was in 2020. Not because we don't have women in Africa who can be plenary speakers, of course, no, but because maybe they don't have the funding to come. As Africa ELSA, we don't offer any funding because of our limited budget, no budget actually. All the board members pay for themselves. So the speakers also have to pay for themselves. So no funding for her to come. Sometimes it's hard for her to travel from her country to the country where we have the conference. And also because those women do not have this professional profile sometimes that they create for themselves, so they can be hunted for speaker as engagement. So we try to start this program where we identify female teachers within our African context who don't have experience with presentations, with conferences, and we try to mentor them. to become conference presenters. And I'm very proud that every year, whenever we have the application, we always have more than 200 applications every year. And we try to select from them according to different geographical locations and, of course, an announced criteria, the mentees to support every year. And every year we have a lot of them who become excellent conference speakers, very active leaders in their teacher associations, and we're very proud of their work. And now they even travel to other international conferences as African speakers, making all of us proud as Africa. They are not just from their country, but they are representing Africa internationally. So when you give these chances to invisible groups within your association and try to build something, do something to support them, all of us are benefiting from it. All of these women who graduated from the program, whenever they present, whenever they speak, they talk about Africa. They don't talk only about their country, they talk about our name as Africa internationally. And I'm very proud of all their work because they have become amazing women leaders themselves. So, as a leader, if you are with those who have more power than you, learn to speak. If you are with those who have less power than you, learn to listen. Leaders are not meant always, or those in power are not meant always to be the ones in the front. As leaders, our best position is to lead from behind and to see everyone in front of us. If you are, as a leader, the one who's always speaking, showing up to everything, you are not doing a good job as a leader. You need to empower others. If you leave your association, you know that there are others who are coming next who can do even a better job than what you did. This is a sign of good leadership. And some people think that we need to be the voice for those invisible, voiceless groups within our associations, for those women. We need to speak about their needs. No. What you need to do as a leader is to pass the mic, give them the chance to speak, give them the opportunity to lead, even if you think that they are shy, or even if you think that maybe they are not 100% ready, give them the chance and they will do great. Because most of those invisible groups, when you motivate them by giving them the chance, by giving them the role, they want to challenge themselves to prove for you that they can succeed. So this is a strong motivation for them. And our assignments as leaders are today to reflect on some ways we can confront gender-biased practices in our teacher association. And also look for opportunities. What can you do for those who are invisible within your teacher association to grow and to develop as a leader? And know that as a leader, you have the power and you need to pass on this power to those who need it the most. Thank you very much. I'm glad to end with this, and also I'm looking forward to your reflections and questions.
Wow. Thank you so much, Amira. That was a great presentation.
Thank you, Rogers.
Maybe I go through the charts and maybe we see the reactions of members and then we can allow for questions. I can see Catherine Nanciobia said, thank you so much for supporting and believing in women, Amira. That is from
Catherine.
Nancy. There is Nancy says, hello everyone, this is a very informative and I can't believe I did not know all this information. The people who didn't even know the information. But we are glad they have received the information.
Yes.
And Margo also agrees that it is true they didn't have information. Irene Chahe says, sometimes women fear how other people will say without considering what their intuition says. Our mind speaks louder voice, but women fear external environment. That is what Irene says, that women fear external environment.
Yes, just to comment on this, Rogers, this is very true, Irene, because, and one thing that I have noticed as well, and I'm very glad in today's webinar that we have everyone, not just females, because sometimes when we organize these webinars around this topic of women empowerment, 90% of attendees are females, or sometimes 100%. And I believe this is not effective because our society is both genders. And we need to talk to both males and females about this topic because, like what you said, Irene, if we keep empowering women within a women-only circle, but then this woman has to work with other males, with other men, not just women. So we are not doing anything, right? So we have to make sure that we spread these ideas outside of female-only groups and make it a societal conversation. It is a conversation we have as a community, not just a conversation for women. This is how we will make it change. And thank you very much for your comment, Irene.
I agree. Frederick says, thanks, Amira. That's our chair. Isaac Mwangi says, detailed presentation, top-notch research. I agree. Danson Kimati says, this is very informative. I also agree. Isaac Mwangi says, great work from Amira. I think a lot of appreciations here. Beautiful presentation from Antoine. I believe many of us are very positive about the presentation that you have made. There is one here I want to read. There is one here. Let me just get it right. Oh my God. Do I get it? We need to create environments that are ideal for people to grow and thrive, where people can express their thoughts freely without being silenced. And most importantly, create an atmosphere where women can realize their optimal leadership. I believe that's great, just empowerment of women. Maybe I allow people to ask questions. Hadija Suleiman says, such a wonderful presentation. I hope in this year's female mentorship program, we are going to have more women from Kenya. Kudos to women empowerment. Women from Kenya, what do you say about that, Amira?
Yes, I hope we have women from Kenya. I didn't really check the countries for the applications yet, but our team of reviewers is doing the blind review, and I hope we will have someone from Kenya in the program this year.
There is a message from Tanzania, Mantumbo or something from Tanzania. Thank you so much, Amira, for presentation. This is a very wake-up call for me as a woman to be active now. But I have a question. In the context, what is different? What is a clear difference different from equality and equity? I think there is they want to know the difference between equality and equity.
Yes, I had this photo to show it. Let me share again. That's a very good question. Okay, I hope you can see it now.
Sharing?
Yes. Is it moving?
Back.
Okay, yes, here.
They were the first photos you presented. Yes, here it is.
Yes. So we are not just about, we are not after numbers. When we talk about how many women we have in leadership, this is equity, right? That we have the opportunity for women to become presidents like men, you know? But if the woman becomes a president, but then she is not respected because of her gender, or the others on board are not following her policy only because of her gender, or she is facing microaggressions as a leader because of her gender, this is not equality. So equality is, as a woman in power, applying it to gender, our topic today. As a woman in power, I have the same opportunities, the same access to resources like men, the same respect, the same ability to enact policies. This is something that many women say that they don't do when they are leaders. They don't have the same access, the same opportunities. So giving everyone the same opportunities is equality. Giving everyone the same position is equity. So if we are after numbers only, this is equity. This is still good, by the way, that we give women the same number of positions like men on board. But improving the experiences of women leaders on board to be as fair and just as their male counterparts, this is equality. And this is, of course, the best to do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe we can hear a few questions. We get the voices and reactions from members. We can hear your voices. Anyone who can unmute and ask a question or your comment or your reaction.
Yeah, I want to hear your voices. Speak up.
Yeah, you want to hear your voices.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amira. This is Frederick, and I like your
Frederick.
idea of passing. Yeah, hi, how are you? I
I'm
like
good.
the
Good to
idea
hear
of
from you.
yes, I like the idea of passing the mic because now at least we are just on the background as the leaders, and we have passed the mic to the emerging leaders like Rogers, Jane, and all the rest. They are doing the work, and we are watching, and we are very grateful for this session. They have really made it, and they are proving to us that we can pass the baton to them when we in the leadership. So we encourage them to come up. It's a very good session, and we like it, and it was quite informative. And I think the bottom line is being committed, dedicated. As leaders, they should be committed, dedicated, and then they'll get the experience and they'll be able to lead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frederick. You are really a great example of a leader. I still remember when we met with you as Africa ELTA and you had all your board members, males and females, speaking, and you were not the only leader dominating the meeting since you're the president. So this is really a great leadership, Frederick. Thank you very much for setting this good model.
Leah,
thank
your
you.
hand was up. Leah Makwenda. Leah, your hand is raised. If you can hear me. She can't hear me. Anyone else? Before we wind up the session?
Leah, I think you are unmuted, but we can't hear you. So
Okay.
there's something with the mic, I think.
Yeah. Yes, Leah. We can't hear her. Sorry, we can't hear you. Fatima Driffy says mothers also need to educate their kids, that is boys from childhood, to respect women. So they grow up with that idea in mind.
That's very true. That's very true. Yes, it starts from the raising up our kids to have these ideas, of course, and as teachers in classes as well. If we take care about these biased gendered practices, I think things will be better.
Thank you. Adija Suleiman says it takes aggressive women to survive in leadership positions. A good example is what we see in our parliaments. Millicent Odhiambo is a good example of an aggressive woman and a no-nonsense person. That is for a comment from Adija.
Yes, Khadija.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hello, Stephen. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, Stephen. Can hear you.
Yes, I want to say that this is a very good session. But just to weigh in on these issues of gender, these are issues that have been embedded fully in the society. When when we want to remove them very fast, sometimes it causes antagonism, in the society. In the society where, it takes a lot of time and effort for us to actually remove them. So how do you bring them out so that they don't bring a lot of antagonism in the society? So that you don't have a lot of quarrels and antagonism? That is my question.
Yes, that's a very good question, Stephen, because if you heard at the beginning, I was talking sometimes about the counter arguments against women initiatives, that even like having a flyer with women empowerment, women in leadership webinar, some members will be triggered, especially male members. Why don't we have men empowerment or male leadership? So what you are saying is really true, because this is part of our culture. Like sometimes the culturally supported concepts and ideas and biases are very hard to confront. But I have to say that one example that we did within Africa ELTA was the mentoring program, with the idea of allowing those women to have the same access to resources like their counterparts, and maybe making them feel confident enough. Just if the program goal is to make them speak up, be more confident that they have something to share and to say, this is enough. And I have to say, it took us years to really reap the fruits. So now, like one thing, for example, as I told you in the beginning, we were trying to find a female speaker to be in our conference as a plenary speaker. Now we have a lot more than 35 teachers from this program are have participated in our events, in our conference. Many of them were featured speakers before, and were also featured speakers in other international conferences. It took years actually of work. It's not just like something we can do next week, you know. And one funny comment we received, for example, on some of our photos from Cairo conference in Egypt, that some people on Facebook said most of these photos have a lot of women. Where are the men? So you see the opposite happens. So now people see women in the conference more than before. And this, as I said, took years. It's not just the work of overnight. So one important thing to believe in as leaders, whether we are males or females, is whatever kind of work we do to empower and support those minority or even those invisible groups within our association will be great for all of us. So when you have those women who are active in silence, but they are not really expressing thoughts, or they are not showing up to events, this does not reflect well on your association. People will see your webinar that has 4 men and 1 woman, for example, right? And they would say you don't have women in Kenya who can be speakers, for example. This is what outsiders will see and judge your association for. But if you are doing the work in the sense that you are making the gender balance and showing your women as many as men, people will see the gender balance and see, oh, we have a lot of speakers from Kenya who can speak at this webinar from both genders. So this is just a very simple example, but it reflects on our collective society. When we empower a group, it's not just about empowering women. No, it has, in my opinion, a profound effect on how we view ourselves and how others view us, and also our societal values. So maybe taking it from this perspective can help alleviate some of the uneasiness that some people might feel with these initiatives, that it is actually something that reflects on all of us, not just women.
Thank you so much, Amira. Because of time, allow me I really want to appreciate you so much before I welcome Jen. And I must say, you are a good leader. When we were in Cairo, you showed that leadership. And you are not just there because of gender. You are there because you are capable.
Thank
Not
you,
just
Roger.
because of gender.
Thank
I
you very
agree.
much.
You are quite informed.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I know many ladies and the gents who are here are inspired by your presentations.
Thank you, Rogers.
Thank you. Welcome. Let me welcome Jane. Jane is our coordinator for this program. Jane.
Thank you very much, Rogers. Amira, I'm so happy that the first time, actually, let me just start from where the first time I had Amira, and I was like, wow, I'm like, this is something, you shift perspective when it comes to women empowerment. It's not just about the number, but it goes beyond just the number, but the women around, or the women in leadership being heard. And I thought this is something that Kenya needs. I know in Kenya we have numbers, but I feel we could move, we could go beyond just the numbers, but also give opportunities to women. And as chapter leaders, I feel now that you are well equipped, that we have been able to tap into Amira's knowledge and
Jane,
wisdom.
did we lose you?
Sorry?
Okay, proceed. It's my internet that has a problem.
Okay. We could tap into Amira's knowledge and wisdom when it comes to women in leadership. It is not a woman's thing, it is a collective thing, both male and female. And it trickles not just to women, but also to the minority. So thank you very, very much, Amira, for honoring us with your presence, and also being able to learn from you as Kenyan leaders. I hope everyone has learned quite a lot. So I appreciate also that people who are able to join the different chapters that we have in Kenya. We have representation from the different parts of the country. We have from the coast, from Nairobi, the main capital. We have from the Nyanza, which is near the Lake Victoria. We also have friends and colleagues and leaders from Africa, East Africa, from Tanzania and Uganda. We really appreciate your time and joining us in this very insightful session with Amira. Please, Amira, when you go back to Africa Elta, please pass our greetings, and also in Nile, Egypt. We are happy to collaborate also with the different TAs that are around your region. Yes. Meanwhile, I would like to talk about our next webinar, which will be in the coming month. It will, again, we did a survey, and most people agreed to the first Saturday of the month, but subject to change, and most people recommended Wednesday evening. Thank you for also doing that survey and being available for the session. So for our next session, we are going to have the founder of Africa Elta, who is Dr. Okon. He will be joining us in the coming month, and he will be talking about proposal writing. I hope we are all ready to learn as leaders, so that we can be empowered, and also be the change makers of our regions. So thank you very much for joining. I'd like to appreciate the presence of the officials who here. We have Frederick. Thank you, Frederick, for joining. And also thank you, Rukia, for joining. Thank you all, and have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't know whether